welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance. I'm your host, Alacia Singer.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin. How's everybody today? How are you, Lacey?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good. Going to be an exciting day. You ready to dive in?
So, Duncan, you know what I did last night?
What'd you do?
I went to see this Broadway show, and I got a great deal on it. So, This is looping to personal finance here. I got a ticket to Broadway's Bad Cinderella for $38.
Cool.
That's a win, right?
That is a win.
So not only is that a great personal finance move right there for recreation, I sort of feel like the whole Cinderella thing kind of ties into our topic today.
Oh yeah, Cinderella from poor to rich, but she married into it. Different era. But we're going to talk about we're going to talk about income inequality. So, and Lacey getting $31 tickets and getting excited shows you which side of that line we're on.
Yeah, I don't hold any punches on that. I'm very clear about it. And you know what? I can afford the more expensive ticket now at this point. But man, if I can get one under $40, I'm there. I'm willing to be experimental about my entertainment, and that's a great price for Broadway.
I was tempted to look at there's a new opera coming out in Portland. It's called what's it called? Riscala. It's kind of like a mermaid opera kind of thing, but it looked really interesting, and I was like looking at it, but I'm like, God, I don't want to spend $250 a ticket.
Yeah. I mean, that struggle is real. Is that the cheapest ticket?
No, those are the decent tickets. The cheap tickets, I've been way up in the balcony, but they're like $80 still.
It's $80 for the nosebleed?
Yeah, for the second balcony. So I forget that.
You know what? I'm cool with that second balcony seat. I'm so okay with it, but I want them to be cheaper.
They're like $30 maybe. Yeah, $40 maybe, but.
Oh, yeah, for like $30 or $40, get me that nosebleed section. I'll enjoy the music and it'll be good. I can still see those cool costumes.
All right. Anyway, middle class problems. So.
Middle class problems. It's true.
We'll jump in. So let's talk about middle and lower class problems now, and we're going to dive in real quick. And I want to just the income inequality thing. Paul Krugman here, very famous economist, has worked for, I forget which presidents he's worked for, but he's very famous. So here's an interview with him from a few years ago, and they're talking about it. And I just kind of want to go into this because he kind of nails the problem here. And
see that, and actually, I spent a little while just sort of going through the Forbes 400 list, and what you find is already there's an awful lot of inherited wealth in there. It's no longer a list of self-made men, and of the self-made men, a lot of them are pretty elderly, and those fortunes are going to be passed on to next generation. So the drift towards oligarchy is very visible, both casual observation and in the numbers.
I was taken with something you wrote the other day.
So I want to talk about that because that's the main issue. The whole point, behind the American dream was that anybody could make it. If you worked hard enough, you strove. That's not the case. You have to have money coming in to get there. So the American dream there, they're saying it's pretty much, it's dead. And the problem with that is that's what when this country was founded, that's part of what we were fighting against. Ideally, we can argue about whether that's what was actually going on, but ideally it was this idea that we wouldn't have to live under oligarchs or an aristocracy anymore. But what's happened is the system's been around long enough that way that there's a whole new class of oligarchs and whatnot, and they're there because of money, not because of royalty.
To a degree, we've manufactured them.
Yeah.
We've created them.
Right.
Right.
Well, and we've allowed it to happen when we could have taken steps against it. So we're going to watch them talk a little bit more about that. But that's the main problem. And then there's a disparity of power that happens and a disparity of money. And that creates bigger economic problems. When you have too much money balanced at the top and those people have more of a say about where the money goes, of course, it's all going to tilt that way. And that's what's happened, especially over the last, 40, 50 years. But
right, Duncan, let's pause for a second.
Sure.
I'm gonna turn the volume up here on my end and see if that helps, because it felt like they were
a little quiet. Yeah, I've got the volume.
It might be just their recording that was quiet in general.
Yeah, the recording's a little quiet, but yeah, we'll go in back in.
Here we go.
That, in your opinion, the real problem is not capital accumulation per se, as much as it is, quote, remarkably high compensation and income. Now, how does that differ from what you were just saying about wealth that passes to the next generation?
So right now, high incomes are still primarily coming from people who made a lot of money, typically as corporate executives. That has been the story. So the big expansion of inequality in the United States since the 1970s has so far been driven by high salaries, high bonuses, and so on. That's where we are now. But our image of the top is really a quarter century old. It is about the way things were when these great fortunes were just getting started. We're just seeing the explosion of inequality. But we're well along the way towards one in which it is, in fact, an older thing, where people accumulate capital, pass it on to their heirs, and you get these dynastic wealth. So right now, and this is where Piketty has interesting things to say, but not this compelling vision about why America is so unequal right now. But looking forward, he's telling us that the story is already changing, and it's going to change more. So we are going to probably, unless something gets better, we're going to look back nostalgically on the early 21st century, when you could still at least have the pretense that the wealthy actually earned their wealth, and by the year 2030 it'll all be inherited. And
so that's the problem. So part of it is income, and part of that income is controlled by, once, like you said, the booms in the 80s and 90s, and it was executives that were taking these huge bonuses and blah blah blah. But those guys were working their way up, essentially, right? Granted, a lot of it was pretty greedy how it was done, but that was how it was done. Now, this idea, like he said, now is a pretense that you can earn your wealth. It's not reality, right? It's more likely you're going to be in whatever class you're going to be in. And I'll show you an example of that in our next clip. But that's kind of the issue. But issues that could solve that are things that mitigate how much money a person can make, and tax things and things like that. And that's where we're going to go next here. But first, or in a minute here, but first we're going to go to this. So part of the issue we have on this show, and we've done this many, many times, is people giving generic financial advice as if it's some sort of rock solid thing. Now, it's not necessarily all bad, but it doesn't work for most people. And I'm going to show you this real quick. And here's something from PBS. And a guy did this thing, and it was the everything you need to know about finance you can put on an index card.
Oh no!
And he and this woman wrote a book about it. Yep. So we're going to watch a little bit of this. We're going to go through what he talks about, and I'm going to show you why it doesn't make sense.
But first, it
There we go.
couldn't get any simpler. All the financial advice you really need might just fit on a 4x6 index card. And in the next 8 minutes, our economics correspondent Paul Solman will fill you in and let you know what the secret is. It's part of our weekly Making Sense report, which airs every Thursday on the NewsHour. Use Fidelity's analytics to spot trends, gain insights, and figure out what
There's
you
a
want.
little ad. Let's skip right to the guy.
Chicago health policy professor Harold Pollack.
So the guy's a health policy professor, and he's issuing financial advice.
Who lives in Flossmoor, Illinois, 20 miles from campus. About personal finance, until recently, he knew squat.
I sort of figured it would all work out, and I didn't have to think about it too much. And so I did it.
Until, that is, he had to, when in 2003, his mother-in-law died suddenly, leaving her disabled son in the Pollack's hands.
The expenses of caring for someone who is quite disabled, are very frightening. When Vincent moved into our home, he was about 340 pounds, and we needed to get furniture that would fit him. One time we had to go out and just buy a recliner, and it was something like $900.
And there were hospitalizations, medical bills. Pollack needed advice.
So this was all good stuff. So he basically went online, did his own research, hooked up with somebody, sort of a financial guru type. This woman here.
Elaine Olin over Skype. At one point, he said offhandedly,
"The really good advice can fit on a 3x5 index card and is available for free in the library."
This time around, Elaine Olin joined virtually once again.
And so they agreed on that, and they wrote a book with the index cards. I mean, that's the problem I have, is that
they wrote a book.
No, that I knew nothing about personal finance. I Googled some shit, and now I'm selling it as if I'm an expert.
Yeah, I don't love that part.
That's my problem. So let's go into some of the stuff on the card, because it's not bad shit. I mean,
But she might actually have some sort of.
No, she's done some financial advising, but she's not. I don't know what her certifications are, if she has any. I couldn't find anything. But let's see if we can go. They have he wrote them down. Let's see. We'll skip them. So rule 1, strive to save 10 to 20% of your income. Okay? Yeah, not a bad idea, right? I mean, any complaints on that end? I mean, it's if you can.
Actually, I don't have an issue with that one. I mean, the percentage you can manage will be, based on a lot of personal factors, but striving for savings of 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been sort of generic advice that's been put out there
forever.
That's kind of always been sort of one of the things. More if you can, but
right.
aiming for at least that,
Right. But let's say you're saving that, a lot of that's going, you get to 20%, and you're saving that for retirement and all that. And we've already discussed that half of working Americans make $54,000 a year or less. Right? So of the 211 million working people, 106 million people make 54 grand or less. Right? So at 54,000, all right, let's say they're able to save, well, we won't factor in tax, but let's say they're able to save 10%, 20%, right? So they're saving 10,000 a year, right? But what that means is 54,000 minus 10 grand. So they've got 44 that they saved, and then we'll factor in tax. Now they're talking about you'd have to be living off of $2,900 a month. So you'd have to be living pretty much below almost 150% of the poverty line.
Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily, I haven't read their book, but to play devil's advocate, maybe they mean 10 to 20% of your take home, not your gross.
Well, but we could do it that way too. But let's say we did the take home just for safety's sake, right? And let's say you got average market return, last 20-year return is 8%, and you did that for over 30 years. The future value, you'd have $1.1 million in savings for retirement over a 30-year period. That sounds great, right? However, if you factor in inflation, right, that's only the equivalent of about $380,000 today. And so if you factor in, okay, let's say you need that for 25 years in retirement. That would be, let's see, is that correct? No. That would be $2,900 a month to live off of. So that and maybe some Social Security. What you haven't done is you haven't ever improved your lifestyle. And you save 20%. And you're still in the same bracket.
All right, let's play devil's advocate again because I like doing that.
Sure.
So you haven't improved your lifestyle, but even at the sort of flatline scenario, while I'd like to see a person improve their lifestyle, I would like to see them be able to retire at all. And under that scenario, at least they can.
Sure.
Because I'm sorry. I'm so tired of hearing people being like, well, my plan is to die at my desk.
No.
What if you can't? What if you can't keep being at your desk, you know? Anyway. Yeah.
Well, I would argue the better solution is to say, okay, yeah, strive to save 10 to 20% if you can, because that's how you're going to survive. But just realize you're not going to get ahead doing that. You're not really going to get anywhere. You're going to basically be in the same economic scenario you are. That's the reality. Now, the question...
Initially, the only part of that advice I wasn't liking is that it gives a relatively low dollar amount, some sort of like a safety stamp in people's minds. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm doing that amount. I'm sure I'll be fine, right?
Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really solve anything. Because then, like, he has that situation where, oh my gosh, my brother-in-law is moving in and he's disabled and I have to take care of a third person. And now there's all those extra expenses I didn't plan for. Now things are worse. Right? This is taking into account that nothing goes wrong over 30 years. What are the odds that's going to happen? Nobody's that lucky. Anyway, but that's my point, is it doesn't solve the problem. Right? The problem, once again, is still the wealth inequality problem we just talked about with Paul Krugman. It's not... So these are just little Band-Aids to what is a bigger problem. So when these guys slap this advice like it's genius, it's not. It's the basic Band-Aid solution that you can do day to day, but it doesn't solve the problem. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's certainly not going to help you achieve a realistic goal. So there's that one. What else? We can go to a couple more of these. Rule 2, pay your credit card balance in full every month. Yeah, if you can, you absolutely should do that. I don't really have a complaint about that. That's a pretty simple one. Max out your 401k. Yep, always, if you can.
If you can.
If you can, you should absolutely do it.
That's not easy, though. By the way, the only issue that I have with that one is that rule doesn't say strive to. It says to do it.
Right.
And now that's just a matter of I'm nitpicking at words, but I'm also an English teacher, so I'm going to nitpick at the words. But that's making it sound like you just can, and you know,
not everybody can afford to. Yeah.
Right. If that 54,000 that we talk about, you know, on 54,000, you're maxing that out.
Well, plus rules.
That's like shaving off 20 grand off the top before you even deal in taxes and all of that stuff. Then you're living off of 30,000 before the taxes are taken out. I mean, it's assuming a lot to assume that people just can max those.
Once again, all this assumes you're making over 70K. You're in the top 25% of earners in the United States.
Depending on what area of the country you live in.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, in your circumstance.
Sorry, I'm a teacher, and your average teacher here in New York City makes 70K or higher.
But that doesn't go anywhere.
Still having them max that out. Some of them can, but many of them very simply cannot, and it's not for lack of effort.
Oh, no. I made a significant amount of money in Honolulu, but I can make, 60% of that here in Oregon, and it goes a lot farther. Mm-hmm. Even though I was making a lot more money in Honolulu, that money was gone at the end of the month. There was just no way to afford anything. The other thing about the 401k thing, remember we talked about last time, 57 million employers don't even provide 401ks. Or if they do, they especially don't match. So you're talking probably easily 100 plus million, almost half of American workers don't have a retirement plan through their work. Especially if you're working as like somebody in the service industry, you're working as a waitress or a waiter or a cook or, you know, a bartender or something like that. A lot of those businesses can't afford it. So, I mean, like I said, this sort of, it sounds all nice and good until you actually look at it per person and how many people it affects. Because most of what he said so far only affects about half of American workers, the upper half. It doesn't affect, the bottom half are fucked on this. And that's the problem. But Krugman was pointing out that, like I said, this is the easy way to ignore it. Just do these things and it should all work out. So if you're not successful, it's because you're not following the index card. Not because the system screwed you. Not because you're in a bad position. Right. So let's go back. So never buy or sell individual stocks. Probably good advice unless you know what you're doing. I'm not going to go into that one too much. We'll skip ahead here. What is it? 5. Buy inexpensive, well-diversified indexed mutual funds and ETF, exchange-traded funds. First off, index funds are not diversified. They're tied to an index. They're not diversified. So the S&P, if you buy an S&P 500 index fund, it's not diversified. It's tied to the U.S. market. Whatever the U.S. market does, it's going to do.
Generally speaking, taking the word diversified out of the equation, for the average person to focus on index funds, etc., isn't necessarily a bad thing.
If you're under 45 or 50, yeah, I would say that's fine. Once you get above 50, it starts getting dangerous.
Well, but my point, though, is comparing that to people that don't want to do their homework but want to buy individual stocks. Comparatively, going toward an index fund of some sort might be a better way to go.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm just pointing out that this guy is supposed to say this is all you need to know, and there's already something severely wrong. It's not diversified. He doesn't know what the word means in financial terms, at least. But yeah, that's fine. Index mutual funds. The other thing about mutual funds, kids, you got to remember: are they front loaded? Are they back loaded? Are they no load? You have to know what the fees are.
I spend a lot of time with my clients just trying to teach them to understand the difference between these different kinds of fees, which ones we're avoiding, and how much is too much for different types of them, just so when they're looking at something, they don't feel lost.
Exchange-traded funds are probably the cheaper, better way to go. You buy an exchange-traded index fund, it's the same as buying a mutual fund, only it costs probably a 20th.
Right, you don't have to deal with the load at all.
No, because there's no manager. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's not a ton more. We can do the rest of these if you want, but I just wanted to point out there's kind of the point of, look, everybody kind of recognizes income inequality as a problem. That's not really up for debate. I'm certain people will, but it's not. So that's the issue. But the question is all right, we kind of know what the problem is. We kind of know what's causing it is there's too much wealth at the top, right? The question is that how do we fix that? Well, the arguments that we look at all the time in finance, and they never really directly say it, but it's the same kind of thing this guy's doing, is just follow these 10 steps or these 7 steps and everything will be fine. And you'll get ahead and da-da-da. But that's not the case. Right? And the idea is that if you're not succeeding and if things are going bad, it's because you're not following the right steps, or you're stupid, or you're lazy, or something else. And when you do that excuse, then the only real answer to income inequality is, well, some people are wealthy just because they deserve to be. And the people that are poor because they're lazy. Or they're stupid. Which goes back to our whole joke we used to do with that bit from Mr. Show, Worthington's Law, the idea that the more money you have equals the better person you are, and thus beyond criticism. But that's not true. But they kind of want to shoehorn it in there. And that's kind of what this does, unintentionally. I'm not saying this guy's being villainous about it, but it is kind of unintentional to sit there and say, well, if you just do these 10 things, well, that's all the financial advice you need. That's all you need to know. Well, gee, there you go. Then there's no nuance to anything. We don't need to fix anything in the system. Just everybody follow these 10 steps.
Yeah, and why don't we just take the word personal out of personal finance, because it then no longer is.
Yeah, we'll just make it, whatever the machine pumps out. that's what you need to be.
Right.
So to get more into this discussion, we're going to go into a little bit of what's happening with the Fed here, and a little bit of what's happening with and an argument about taxes. And so we're going to go into, this was a debate. I don't know, really debate, more of a discussion. But Sam Seder is on this show. Sam Seder was host of the Majority Report. They're a big show. We've clipped them before. They're actually a really good show if you haven't seen it. And he's on this show called the Peter Bet David Show, or Patrick Bet David. I'll get it right here in a minute. But so they're having a discussion about the Fed here, and then they'll go into taxes. But we're going to look at what their discussion about the Fed, and we'll start here with Sam talking a little bit about it, because he ends up doing most of the talking in this discussion anyway. Oh, whoops.
Capacity to meet demand. It was just that it was mismatched for a long time. You're sending shipping containers to places you had never sent it before.
So he's talking about the supply problem after COVID, where things were tough to get and demand shot up.
To get them back is a lot more expensive. These things are starting to work through the system. Wages contribute a little bit because there has been some wage growth for the first time in decades, essentially.
All right. And I'm sorry, he's talking about inflation and how all this stuff affected inflation. So first off, supply demand problems, then yes, wage growth, but this is the first wage growth we've seen really in decades. So, and that affected a little bit. As we said, the San Francisco Federal Reserve said about 20% of inflation is probably attributable to wage growth.
A lot of it is also maybe the plurality of it. This is based upon the Fed numbers, is basically just the corporations seeing the opportunity to raise these rates. And so
Also
the Fed
true.
comes in, they have one tool to deal with inflation, and that is, they're a hammer. Except for I'm arguing that it's not a nail that they're hitting, it's a screw. And they're doing this, in my estimation, as a way of weakening labor. They are going to kick 1 million people.
How would you do it?
How would I do it? Well, I would deal with it fiscally, or I would just wait. I would wait, because you're starting to see the trends all move in the right direction in terms of inflation, and I would wait.
So you wouldn't have raped.
So essentially, Sam just made the argument we've been making for the last couple of weeks, which is inflation's already going down. Why are you raising interest rates and squeezing it? Right?
Right. We keep asking, do you actually need to do anything? Why don't you just hang out and see if this keeps going the right way?
Right. So I want to show you this real quick. So there's two kind of methods when you're talking about inflation the government has to deal with this. This goes basic Keynesian economics. If you take economics in college, they'll cover this shit. But we're going to go just look at this real quick. And the first is monetary policy. In monetary policy, it's what's called demand pull inflation control, right? So the government does monetary policy or measures. So what does that mean? So monetary would be the Federal Reserve, which is basically the bank for the U.S. government. And what they're going to do is they're going to either buy more, they'll buy or they'll either buy more bonds from people or start paying back their bonds that they've issued, their treasuries. And when they do that, what ends up happening is less cash is in the system. It's now more illiquid. They're just making it illiquid again because they're buying it. If they buy the bonds back, they're putting more cash. If they're selling more bonds and not releasing cash or buying bonds, then they're sucking cash out of the system. So the amount of cash hasn't changed. The amount of liquid cash that we can spend has changed. That's one thing. Now we saw that with quantitative easing. That's one of the tools. Now, the main thing they do with inflation, though, is they can change the interest rate between the banks, because all the banks have to loan dollars from the Fed, because all the dollars sit in the Fed. The Treasury prints the money and deposits it at the bank, the Federal Reserve, right?
Right.
And so the Federal Reserve can say, well, we're going to change the interest rates of how much we loan U.S. money out for other banks, because the big banks have to go to the Fed, and then the medium-sized banks have to go to the big banks, and the big banks are going to up their rates a little bit because they need to make money, right? And then so on and so on down the line, and that ups the rates overall. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So when the Fed says we're going to raise rates by 0.25%, that could translate to 2 or 3% to you and me when we're buying a car or a house or something else. Because by the time it goes through all the banks borrowing,
little channels and filters and whatever, and makes it all the way to us.
Yep.
That quarter of a percent that doesn't sound like much, in parentheses, I will say, the bigger the loan, even a quarter of a percent is a flipping lot of money if you've got a big enough loan. Maybe not on a little like couple $1,000 thing, but
well, I'll give you this: 30-year mortgages last year at the same time were about 3.4%. Now they're 7%. That's because the Fed's partly mainly because the Fed's been raising these rates. I mean, there are other factors, but that's the big one, right? So that's what the Fed is doing right now. Now, when it does that and raises those interest rates, it means businesses borrow less money. So if businesses are trying to expand or hire more people or things like that, they can't do it. So businesses tend to shrink the number of people, try to shrink their wage costs to maximize their profits, which ends up meaning they lay off people and squeeze the job market and try to lower the wages. And that's what's going on. So that's what's happening right now is the Fed is trying to squeeze the job market and lower the wage amounts, thinking that's going to offset inflation. But once again, our argument is that that's not the big cause of inflation. And it probably won't do much, if anything. And it might not do anything. But that's what Sam's basically arguing. It's basically that argument. And that was the argument we did. The professor from Wharton made the same argument.
Right. A number of weeks ago, we essentially did the very same thing.
Yeah. So Sam's just making the same argument. So let's see what they do from here.
I would have probably done maybe half of what they've done. Maybe.
So 2.5, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
You mean the most recent? No.
Right?
He's
No,
saying
today,
whatever's happened.
I mean, look at it today, right? Like they're worried about the banks. At the same time, they're like desperate to we need to kick 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people out of work. They're explicitly saying this.
So I'm gonna go with this. So Sam is he's right and he's sort of wrong, not entirely wrong. To say we're worried about the banks are pissed about them raising the rates because it cuts what they can do. It costs them money. And you got to remember, banks are required to have certain types of investments. Not all of the banks, but most of them are, right? So we're buying the investments as the bank that are treasuries, they're low interest, blah, 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 blah. They're secure. Now we have these things. Now you're raising the interest rates. Well, our stuff is getting, say, 2%. Well, now you've raised the interest rates, so now all the new issues coming out are getting 3 or 4. So now the value of all of our stuff has gone down. Because why would you buy ours at 2% for the same price as one you can get with 3 or 4% interest? Right?
Right.
It does when you can make more money. So now we have to sell our stuff at a discount if we go into problems, or we have to raise money. So you just shrunk our bottom line heavily. You just upped our red and narrowed our black because it's not worth as much. The shit in our vault is not worth as much as it was before. So the banks are pissed too, right? So this isn't really helping the banks. So this is part of what's causing the banking problem. The banks don't have as much liquid shit. And anything they sell, they're going to have to sell at a loss. So you kind of missed the point there. But, but he makes the good point but the real thing is, if this goes into, you squeeze the job market and we go into recession, it's going to be about 2 million people that are going to lose jobs and stuff. But, it's going to hurt everybody for the most part, especially working class people. So it's kind of a whole stupid thing. I can't remember if Patrick Bet-Davis... what's his name? Let me make sure I get it. Patrick Bet David. Sorry, I can't remember if he has a response to this. We'll see if he does, real quick.
And so, that does not make sense to me.
Sam, a guy here, Scott Rodriguez, just said, sorry, but 80% of the loans given the last 3 years only required 5% down payment. It was much harder to get a loan in the 90s.
In terms of mortgages?
Yeah, that's irrelevant. The down payment amount is kind of irrelevant to the discussion. We're talking about the interest. So I don't know where he's going from there. But let's move on to the next part, because now they talk about, in the same debate, they're talking about where do they go from there? Taxes, I think. So yeah, so they're talking about wage growth. Oh, they're going to talk about wage growth and productivity here real quick. And we'll talk about this because this is really important for people to understand.
And cooling the economy. And frankly, I mean, this is the charitable view. I'm articulating the charitable view. And to cool the economy means, as a byproduct, that you're going to kick people out of work. In my estimation, this is the first time we've seen any type of wage growth in decades. Right? The wages versus productivity has been out of sync for decades. And I think, frankly, people don't want labor to have any power. You're seeing increased unionization. You're seeing increased work action. You're seeing people saying, like, I don't want to work in the... Yes, I definitely...
You really think... You think Powell's playing politics in increasing
this
interest?
This is not politics.
But it is, though. Union is a form of... Your policies... Powell is one of the most powerful men in the world today. You know that. I know that, right? So when he moves he's controlling one of the most important knobs, right? Which is the rates.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So, but I'm trying to think myself. Like, I'm trying to sit there and say, okay, when they gave $1.7 trillion in, relief, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, or during COVID, hey, we're going to give $2.1 trillion, we're going to send people this much of money, this, that. Hey, all they're trying to do is they're trying to get people not to work, right? That's what they're trying to do. Are they really, or were they doing it because they're like, dude, I'm not letting you work from home, so I have to send some money to you if you're getting unemployed? And I just laid off how many people at the restaurants were crushed by COVID. Well, I got to kind of take care of you. But then what happened with the money? The money went into the rich because, the low income, middle income doesn't know how to save money. And they spend the money. They're trying to make ends meet. So sometimes you think from the policies and you say, oh, they're trying to do something really bad. You think Powell has negative intentions or, well.
Okay, so it's going into an ad. We caught that just in time. So,
well, that's an interesting question that he's posing.
What, the Powell?
Are his intentions? Yeah. Are his intentions actually good? I'm kind of curious about kind of what the rest of that thought was exactly on his part. But
we'll get to it. But the rest is. But let's say it doesn't. I mean, we can speculate on what Powell's intentions are. I do think that there's good reason, because there's not a real great argument for raising the interest rates other than we're trying to squash the labor movement that's happened after COVID. That's driven up wages, the higher demand for unions, more people applying for unions. It's happened at Amazon, Starbucks. Go through the list. We just saw the bit with the Teamster was in the Senate yelling at the senator, and the senator looked like a total idiot, right? UPS. I mean, so there's a lot of people that are out there going, no, we want higher wages. We want to get paid better. And I think what Patrick Bet-David is missing in this whole thing is he's trying to well, do you think it's intention or not intention? It's not really relevant what his intentions are. What's relevant is what's happening. And so I think Sam gets into this in one of our later videos, but this was just a Washington Post article about productivity and wages, right? So if you go down, so we'll do this. How do I do this? I always forget how to do this. There's got to be a way to. I always do this. Oh, here we go. There we go. Can you see that a little bit better?
Yeah.
We'll scroll in a little bit. Nice.
Yeah, that's better.
All right. So this is the gap between productivity and typical workers' compensation. So notice this. In the 70s, it starts to split, right? In the early 70s, mid 70s. The blue line is hourly compensation. The dark blue line or green line, whatever that is productivity. So worker productivity kept going up and up and up and up consistently. See, it's almost linear. However, by the time you get to the 70s and especially the 80s, right, and they start breaking and taxes go a lot lower and compensation doesn't really go up, what happens? It flattens out. So workers are working harder, making the bosses more money, and they're not getting paid anymore.
What for it?
And they're getting paid nothing. And then I think there's some more in here. Let's see. So the labor share of total income from 1960 to 2020. You can see it was really good, and then blam. So we don't get as much income as the bosses. And we've been well below the average for a long time. Yeah, we'll just go with those two graphs for now. But that's kind of the whole spiel, the whole hang on a second. The whole kit and caboodle there that Sam's getting at, which is there is a gap here where wages haven't increased. Now all of a sudden they're starting to increase. Granted, they're not keeping pace with inflation, but they're going up for the first time since the 80s, really. The late 70s, early 80s, we're starting to see wage growth. And we start to see workers demanding unions and stuff. And now what's happening is there's an inflation problem too. And the Fed now, their only solution is to squeeze the job market and lower wages.
Yeah.
And that's the attack? Yeah, I think it's suspicious. Can I say for sure that's his intent? No, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's reasonable to question it.
Absolutely. So let's see if Patrick, because he's kind of going on a weird diatribe here, and I'm having a hard time following him, but let's see if he gets to a point.
Oh, he just sees this as a.
I don't think any of this. I have a different perspective on how all this works. I don't think that Powell is sitting there going like it's going to negative. I just don't think that these people care. I mean, look, we attacked Iraq, right? 20-year anniversary yesterday or two.
Well, I guess he didn't get to a point. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah, let's leave it there because they're about to go to
somewhere else.
Their place. Yeah.
So the last thing they talk about in this, well, I mean, they talk about a lot of stuff. We're not going to watch the whole thing. But the last thing they talk about that I want to cover here, because it ties it all together, and I think, honestly, this is where I think Sam got really close. And he kind of missed it. And I don't blame him because I don't think he would know this. But I'll show you where it's like, I think he's right on everything, but I think he's more right than he knows. Mm-hmm. And I think he missed it. So,
like he might have accidentally stumbled onto something.
Well, no, he makes the argument we've been making, but he gets right up to it. But I don't think he knows how to close it because I don't think he's not a finance person or an economist, so he wouldn't understand necessarily what the argument is. But they're talking about
there through his own series of logic. He kind of got there.
I think he understands the politics enough, and he's talked to enough professionals to have a good idea of what the right direction is. But to actually sell it all out, no. So they're talking about taxes. They're going to start with the Laffer curve. So Art Laffer, for kids who don't know. Remember Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a bit with Ben Stein, who plays the teacher, and he's talking about what is this? It's the Laffer curve, right? So the Laffer curve was a stupid thing that happened in the 80s, and Reagan went with it, and it's the Reaganomics thing. And the idea is we cut taxes, right? And it'll raise tax revenue because people will be making more money. because the rich will make more money and that'll trickle down to the poor. And we've been sort of doing that we've been actually doing that for the last 40 years. And guess what's never happened? The money has never trickled down to the poor. So it's never worked. So they're going to start with that. And I think they're going to, because Patrick Bet David, I think, is arguing for it. And Sam's kind of laughing about it. So they're going to talk about it real quick.
Are going to be to generate income. And then
let's go back.
Because they're
1 sec. Let's go back.
I said, what happened? We haven't seen you lately. It's so funny you ask. My husband and I made a decision that the moment taxes got so high, it was more important for me to be stay home. It wasn't worth me working to pay this much in taxes. So there's a part of what he's saying. Yeah, whatever, whether he's going to do the movie.
I think that's great. No, I guess
but there's a part of it that kind of
hang on.
needs to be there.
I went back too far.
Right? Like the Laffer curve argues that the higher the tax rate goes,
there we go,
the less inclined people are going to be to generate income. And then because they're generating less money, there's going to be less tax receipts collected by the government. Art Laffer was Sam Brownback's #1 advisor in Kansas. Do you remember this when Brownback became governor? He basically gave over his entire tax structure to Art Laffer. It destroyed the tax base in Kansas. It ended up destroying their entire education system. They had an amazing Kansas university. Brownback gets plucked out of Kansas and literally sent to be ambassador to Ether. You know what? They made him ambassador to faith because they didn't want this guy around at all. The Republican-controlled Kansas legislature raised taxes back up because it had destroyed their tax receipts. The theory may sound good, but it doesn't work in practice.
So are you on YouTube and Rumble or just YouTube?
That's the response to that. So they were arguing for the Laffer curve, right? And he makes an argument. I skipped it because it's kind of long and tedious, but he makes the argument because Sam's saying, well, you know what? What if taxes went up to, marginal tax rate went up to 90%, like it was in the 50s, right? Top marginal tax rate. And he was like, well, what if, YouTube started charging you 90% or 90 cents on a dollar for every dollar you made for advertising, right? And he's like, but that's different. You're talking about a business that I subscribe to cutting my revenue, not me being taxed after I collect my revenue. There's separate things, right? And that was essentially his argument for the Laffer curve. So essentially, here's the argument they didn't understand and why it's so funny. But I think that was hilarious that once Sam makes that point, so are you on YouTube or Rumble? Let's change the subject because I got nothing. But here's the argument. So currently, the top marginal tax rate is 37% in the United States this year, 2023. I don't know. You might be watching this years from now, but it's 2023 right now. So let's say I have a guy and he's making $5 million a year in his business. Okay. Well, I want you to understand the upper rate right now, if they moved it to 90, that wouldn't apply to anyone making under 3. So that 90%, that top rate applies to over 3 million. And that 37% applies to about over 3 million now too, right? So let's say my $5 million guy, currently with his 30% top marginal rate, his actual effective tax rate would be 36.16%. That's what he pay in tax, right? And his federal tax total would be 1.8 million. Okay. Now that same guy, if we move to a 90% from a 37% top marginal tax rate, that first 3 million would be taxed the same as this first 3 million was taxed. But every dollar after that would be taxed 90% on the dollar. So his effective tax rate with this would be 57%, so it would be 20% more, and he'd pay 2.8 or 2.9 million, so about $1 million more. Okay? This only affects people over 3 million a year 4.41% of the population. Only affects the wealthiest 5.7 million people in the country, moving to this tax rate. But what it does is it answers Paul Krugman's question. And it is Paul Krugman's answer, which is if you raise the top marginal tax rate, we wouldn't have the wealth inequality problem as bad. So it solves a lot of problems just right there, which I think is kind of an amazing.
The people that have want to keep being the people that have.
Right, and they don't want to. They don't want to give it up.
They don't want to be on the same level with other people.
No. But that's the point. So this guy, Patrick Bet-David, I think is struggling with that. But here's where they miss it, because Sam does mention it earlier, where he talks about, I think maybe we could solve this fiscally. All right. So let's look at what a fiscal solution might look like. We looked at the monetary, right? The monetary solution is we squeeze the amount of cash in the system, or we raise interest rates to squeeze the amount of cash in the system. And that would affect workers, and that could potentially lead to recession and 2 million people going out of work. And then, lots of other people struggling. What would be a fiscal solution? Not the Federal Reserve. A fiscal solution would be the Treasury, the federal government dealing with it, Congress dealing with it, right? So a fiscal solution involves actual cash into the system. So what you could do is, from fiscal policy measures to control inflation, you could decrease overall government expenditures and transfer payments. So you could decrease how much you spend on military spending or whatever, right? Or businesses that the government sends grants to, because that would shrink. Or you could increase rates of taxes, causing individuals to decrease their total expenditure. So if we raise the top marginal tax rate potentially, we would decrease total expenditure. Potentially.
Honestly, I don't think it's a terrible plan, but the people who have, like I said, the people who have, they like being the haves over the have-nots.
But the other argument is this, and this is where it gets interesting. Their whole thing is, well, if you increase their taxes, they're less likely to want to hire people or expand their businesses because they're making less money. That's actually false, because what ends up happening is if I'm making $5 million a year, right, and you increase my tax to everything over $3 million, right, being 90% taxed, well, instead of taking my $3 million or my $5 million as a business owner, right, and collecting it as income, why wouldn't I just take the 3 and put the other 2 back into my business and invest it in my business by expanding and hiring more people?
Right. Keep Uncle Sam's hands off more of it by putting it straight back into the business, as opposed to in your own pocket, where Uncle Sam goes, "Hey, I got my hand out."
Right.
Right.
So there are other things here, but there is a solution where it's like, yeah, if we raise taxes potentially, especially on the upper class, I mean, not just this, but I mean, other tax positions that we could pull, that would squeeze some of the money, but you wouldn't be squeezing the poorest of Americans, it'd be squeezing the richest of Americans to solve the inflation problem. But you notice how that's never on the table, right? And we don't ever discuss it. I think, I don't blame Sam for missing it, because nobody really talks about it. But it is a solution, But yeah, but I think that was a good point he made on that one. So we're going to wrap up this thing. So this debate kind of got shouted out a bit, which is how I caught it. But Joe Rogan, very famous, with his, $100 million from Spotify that he got, doing his podcast, and that's what he does now. And he's just he does a lot of weird stuff. He has a lot of anti-trans and crazy people on and whatnot, but he does not like Sam Seder, apparently. So he's doing this dig on Sam Seder's debate, but he doesn't ever mention his name because he's afraid of him or something. I don't know. But let's watch.
Doesn't like giving attention to other people, you know, in that sort of a way.
Or something, yeah. But we're gonna watch him. We're gonna watch him sort of dog on Sam Seder, and he's gonna make the same mistake, and it's gonna be kind of fun. So let's watch him real quick.
A future, healthy, happy life, and what's the impediment of those prospects, and how do we mitigate all these issues, like inner city crime, violence, gangs, like all that should be of primary concern to anyone who's like, if you're running this country and you're saying, you know, we want to make the greatest country the world's ever known, we think we have the greatest country, we can make it even better, and here's how. The number one would be we got to fix the ghettos. Number one, we got to the economic disparity, the disparity in terms of the prospects that people have for living a normal, healthy life without violence and crime. The difference between someone who's born in Baltimore and someone who's born in Beverly Hills are so off the charts different, and no one's doing jack shit to try to even that out. Like this idea about like financial equality, like that's not, you're not going to achieve that because you're not going to achieve effort equality. People, there's certain people who are just going to always work harder than other people. This idea of like we need to redistribute. I was watching this.
One second, possible.
Okay, so once again, it goes back to our initial point, right? Yes, we all recognize the problem, right? I would also say not just the ghettos, but rural communities really suffer, and they suffer from a lot higher crime per capita than a lot of the cities. So yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly a lot of people we could be helping out, but well, we can't redistribute the wealth, according to Joe Rogan, because income equality is never going to be achieved because some people work harder because that's how people make money, by working hard. But we just watched Paul Krugman explain, no, most people are inheriting it anymore, or they get it from their parents. It's not because they're harder workers. That's all gone. That era is over. If you thought that existed today, it's a pretense. It's not real. Right? So he's wrong on that point to sit there and go, well, yeah, income inequality because some people are harder workers. I'm like, Jesus, Joe, you do not work as hard as a lot of people, and you're worth $100+ million. There are people working 2-3 jobs making $50,000 a year, much harder working than you. They didn't get any advantages. So that's all nonsense, but that's the mentality that has to go into it as well. No, if it's just about work ethic and it's just about that, we can ignore the solution, because the solution of actually having to just redistribute the wealth, we don't want to talk about that. So it's got to be that it's all personal responsibility. And then it's a big problem, but then what's the solution? There is no solution. Everybody's just on their own, which is convenient when you already are wealthy.
It's like, well, sorry about your luck.
Right.
I guess that sucks.
I've already won the game.
I'm going to go hang out on my yacht now.
Yeah, this is really we're ahead by 1 touchdown at the third, into the third quarter. So we're going to end the game now while we're ahead. It's like, no, we still got game to play, brother. But they don't want to do that. We got to skip by it. So we're going to go to his next thing here. But this is how stupid it is. But he's emblematic. Amplifies. He's emblematic and amplifies. Sorry. I had the 2 words together. He's emblematic. We're going to put the words together. Emblematic of the problem, which is we recognize the issue, but we don't like the solution, so we're just going to ignore it, that there's a problem. Or we're going to say the problem can't be solved, which is what he's doing. Which is what they all do, all the conservatives do on all the finance channels that we watch. And it's bullshit. But he's the poster child they're talking to, and he's regurgitating it.
Conversation where this fucking dork was trying to say that all money.
Okay, the dork he's talking about is Sam Seder.
over $3 million that a person makes should be taxed at 90%. Like, that's great for you to say, because you're never going to make $3 million, you fucking idiot. But that's so stupid. The idea behind it is so stupid. The understanding of where that money goes is so stupid. The understanding of incentives. Well, what about fucking venture capital money? What about all the fucking money that you need to make an iPhone? Do you think anything's going to happen if you tax everybody over $3 million, 90%? No. Where's the money going, by the way? It's just...
We already explained. That's the problem, is he doesn't know. And we just explained it. Tends to go back into your business because you don't want to pay the tax on it. I mean, that's what tends to happen. It tends to go back into investment in business, hiring more people, expanding companies.
Give a few raises to some well-deserving people, maybe create a few positions that let people move up. Maybe you create some of the lower level positions so you can have more positions in general. Yeah, all sorts of things.
Right. Plus, some people are going to collect it, and the tax revenue is going to go up significantly. But where do you think an iPhone comes from? I don't know where Joe Rogan thinks an iPhone comes from, because it wasn't developed by private industry. The technology for that, I mean, yeah, Apple developed it, but the technology for it was not developed by private industry. It was developed by universities and government giving grants. The cell phone towers, the satellites, all that shit funded by government. I mean, which comes from what? Tax money. So if we have more tax money, we're throwing more into R&D, which makes us more competitive, which makes us a bigger problem for Russia and China and all these countries they want to go to war with. I mean, it's such a, we can't. It's one of those where it's like, it's like the general saying, no, we have to stand in a line out in the open, right? When the soldiers are sitting there going, yeah, but the American troops are hiding behind trees, shooting at us and picking us off one by one. Yeah, but traditionally we stand in a line in the open, shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, but the Americans are hiding behind it now, but we stand in a line. I mean, it's the same. There's no solution, guys. There's no solution to this problem. Really? Could we change the color of our uniforms from red to, I don't know, brown, and maybe fucking hide or lay on the ground or something?
Right? Instead of look like a freaking beacon to be shot at.
Right.
Sign me up for that, please.
But that's the point, is no, it doesn't work. It can't work. That's stupid. Nope. Da. So anyway, I'm just going to close it on that. But that's the point, is yep, we know the problem. We have a pretty good idea what the solutions are. Absolutely, raising taxes would help dramatically our economy. It would help the lower class quite a bit. Might actually help the inflation issue right now. I mean, there's lots of benefits here that could be happening. But we can't talk about raising taxes because that's stupid, because wealth equality will never happen, because it's all about personal responsibility and, fuck the poor.
Well, the ones, talking about personal responsibility are the ones that very simply don't want to give up their lot in life. King talks about it in Letter from Birmingham Jail that, rarely does the person who has a particular advantage want to give up their advantage for the sake of other people being equal to them.
No.
You have to apply some sort of pressure to require it. So what does that pressure look like in this particular situation? You know? Well,
right now it's voting and unionizing and asking for more wages, but they're going to push whatever buttons they can. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of our thing about it. I mean, like I said, I think Sam was more right than he knew, because the tax situation might actually quell the inflation problem a lot better than a monetary policy, a fiscal policy of raising tax.
Right.
And the government saying, hey, I mean, if you're going to, because they subsidize a lot of like the farms and stuff and things like that. But it's like, okay, if I'm subsidizing the farm as the federal government, and it's like, okay, you guys are jacking, not Safeway, but let's say some milk companies jacking up the price of milk. I might tell the farms, well, I'm going to reduce your subsidies if you sell to that company who overpricing milk. Or you have to price milk at X amount. Or companies can only charge X amount. If otherwise, we're going to lose subsidies. I mean, there are lots of things you could do along the line because the government pays for a lot of shit that people forget about. So anyway, so that was our income inequality and federal policy kind of stuff. Do you want to do a quick cage match and then get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's cage match and then hightail it out of here.
All right. So for none of those of you who haven't seen a cage match, Lacey and I have not seen this at all. It's a Dave Ramsey episode. And the question is, can we still afford to buy a house? Now, we're going to watch it. Lacey's going to guess what their predictions are. And we're going to try and see if I can out-financial plan them.
All right. I'm going to look into my crystal ball, and then you're going to see if you can...
I'm going to look into my financial calculator.
Right, my crystal ball and your financial calculator. Here we go.
Let's go to Alyssa now in Sacramento, California. Alyssa, how can we help?
Hi there. My name is Alyssa. Thanks for having me on the show. Just wanted to ask you a question.
Hang on. She is... How quick is... I had it going fast. All right. We're going to slow her down. All right.
My husband and I, we just found out that we're 8 weeks pregnant with our first child.
Yay!
Yes, unexpected, but it's a joyful blessing. I wanted to see if our goal is to purchase a house. Wanted to see if we could still do that while preparing for a baby financially, as well as living on one income, potentially.
Okay, so where are you guys at financially? Do you have any debt?
No debt.
Do you have an emergency fund?
We have 6 months saved.
Awesome.
Yeah,
what about down payment?
Down payment, I have $500.
$500?
So basically, we put it $500 because we put it on hold while my husband finishes student teaching, where he's teaching full time for free to get his credential, which he should have at the end of June.
Okay. So what is the goal for down payment and house purchase?
So our goal was to take, because we think that we could do fine.
You have any thoughts so far, Lace?
Well, I guess we need to hear more of what she says their financial goal is, but I'm thinking that they are going to say, no, you cannot buy a house yet, generally speaking, because she doesn't have enough for the down payment. They're not going to recommend that she goes into the 6-month emergency savings and depletes that in order to buy a house, in order to end up in a situation where they need their emergency savings and don't have it.
Right.
So unless she pops out with some sort of information that's saying, but we can save at a rate of blah, blah, so before the baby's here, we could do it. Unless she pops out with that sort of data, they're probably going to say to keep renting for a while. And also, they do tend to tell people when they're having babies to stack up their savings as high as they can, hoping they don't need it, but in case there's any complications when it comes to, having the baby, if there's any medical complications or whatever, they have like a bigger stack of cash. And then after it is certain that mother and child are fine to, put those funds to another purpose. So I think for the 2 reasons, they're going to say, wait.
Yeah, I'd probably say wait too. We really need to know how much she makes, how much the husband is potentially going to make. Because the question is can they pay the mortgage? Right. The down payments is a different kind of issue, but the question is, can they pay the mortgage and how much can they afford? So that's
right. What's the situation compared to what the mortgage situation would be? And we always know that there are, question marks in terms of when you own a place, random repairs and things that pop up. So
but I need to know, we need to do some income stuff first. So before we get into any really discussion.
It was a 3-month emergency fund because we never use it. We plan to build it 6 months, which we did. Then basically get through this period without using our emergency fund, which we've done by living frugally, and then take 3 months of our emergency fund and make it actually into a down payment fund. Add it to the down payment fund and just have a 3-month emergency fund, and then that would give us $8,000.
Now you're in California. I assume this house is going to be very expensive.
So if we had, I don't know if you guys, I hear sometimes you guys allow people to do like 5-10% down on their first house. So 20,000 would be 5% down. And so if I'm doing like side jobs.
Whoa. Yeah, that's already a problem right there. Because 20% of 20,000 being she's talking about buying a $400,000 house. And her husband's going to be a teacher?
Yeah.
What is that starting in California? It can't be more than like 60 or 70 starting in California.
It would depend on, whether he has only a bachelor's or if it's a master's degree level as well.
But 400,000, I mean, that's an expensive house. I mean.
So, but I also want to know that we don't know. She said their one income, and she said that he's doing his student teaching for free. So we wonder if she is working and he is the one who she is not counting as working because it's for free. Or is he the one who's the working person and she is not? I'm a little confused about that part of their story.
Still, I'm looking at it right now. So $400,000 house on a 30-year mortgage. And we figured out, we actually mentioned that earlier, 7% is the average rate right now. They're paying $2,700 a month in mortgage. And that's not including HOA or utilities. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money. He's got to be bringing home like $5,000 or $6,000 a month to cover that. Or they do together. So let's see where it goes.
What's your household income with that one income?
Oh, there we go. That's a question.
With the one income, it's probably gonna be $55,000 a year.
This is a
55,
nightmare.
yeah,
Looking
not gonna
for a
happen.
place to happen.
Okay.
How much is this mortgage going to be?
Well, we were thinking of getting a duplex where we could. That was our goal before the baby.
No,
so,
you're going to be a landlord with a newborn, with your neighbor next door knocking when the HVAC goes out.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to justify the home purchase in California, and the numbers just don't make sense. So here's what I'll tell you. I would focus on continuing to save the down payment. Let's have the baby. Let's see where we're at financially. The 5 to
Yeah, you called it. So,
in this respect, though, honestly, I might have slightly different reasons for the judgment call, but I'm going to agree with their judgment call that they shouldn't do it.
I have very different reasons, but yeah, we'll go into it. I mean, basically, they can't afford it. That's true, but
super simply, they can't afford it. Yeah,
right.
That's on a monthly basis or the down payment basis, any of the basis, they can't afford it.
Mm-mm.
It's also, I'm looking at this from like not partially a financial point of view, but partially just like a balance of life issue, because our money is about our lives. That's trying to sign up to have a whole lot going on at the same time that maybe doesn't really need to be going on at the same time. Like, I think they're looking at it slightly through a different lens than me, but I would say I agree for sort of different reasons. But do you really want to be having your first baby, moving into your first home, becoming a landlord for the first time while your husband is getting his first teaching job?
Right.
That's just like a recipe for relationship issues, mental health, emotional issues. Like, that's signing up for a lot of stuff to be trying to happen at the same time, and I don't think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. The other thing I would say too is he should really work for a year before you get a house, because they're going to want to see 1 to 2 years of steady employment, and that's going to affect what the interest rate is going to be on the mortgage.
Okay. I don't want to get really negative on this, but not all teachers that get right out of the gate stay in the profession. Some of them do 1 to 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, I can't do all this.
Yeah.
So it would be a better situation if, like, I don't know how long in the school district he'll be looking at it takes him to get tenure, but 2-3 years, either like, hey, this is my tenure year, or I just got tenure, is going to look better to any potential lenders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they could get a decent 2-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom apartment, at least for the first year, then you'd probably want to move to a 2-bedroom apartment by the time the kids, 1.5 or 2, and they're out of a crib. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, it's probably better to keep yourself flexible for the first couple, 2-3 years before you tie yourselves into a house.
And he's starting a new profession. What if it turns out the school district they buy in is one that he is miserable teaching in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's all of that sort of thing too. What if it's not just an individual school issue, but it's like this district, but if I went to this district over here,
right.
And that stuff, looking at it from the parent where I'm sticking my child in perspective is one thing, but from the perspective of a teacher who's going to be teaching there, you might not really be looking at it quite the same way, and you might not really be able to understand until you've been in for a little bit whether that's a school district that is going to be a good match for you or not. And if you've gone literally buying your house somewhere, you're either setting yourself up for staying in a district that maybe you don't want, or having a worse commute.
Right.
All reasons to wait a little bit.
Right. The thing I would do is this: when you're shopping for a home, right? If that's what you want to do, and there's nothing wrong with looking. When you go on like Zillow or whatever, because this is what I would do. They usually have what is the monthly mortgage estimate, and they'll do it the same way I would do it as a finance person. It's the same. All real estate finance people do the same things. So what I would do is sit there and go, okay, well, if let's say you can afford, in her case, maybe they could probably afford, because I was looking at it, if he's making $65,000, they've got about $4,300 a month, probably anywhere between $16,000 to $2,000 they could probably afford, $1,600 to $2,000. Anything beyond that I think would be unreasonable, but let's do $1,800. We'll just call the difference, and then I would just factor, okay, so you're paying $21,000 a year, and we'll do 7% interest for the 30 years. What kind of house could they afford? They could afford probably something around $270,000. So that might be like, okay, could you find a decent 2-bedroom apartment that you guys could buy for $270,000 without a huge HOA, because you got to factor that in. And then you'd be in a position, okay, then yeah, you'd be doing $1,800 a month on that. Plus you'd have the place to be growing in value over the next few years. And then you could use it as a starter home, and then you sell that and roll it into a bigger place in 4 or 5 years when you're ready. And you're more stable. That's another option. I don't know that I would say jump into that right away, but maybe like in a year, think about something like that, because that's more realistic.
In a year or two, that's a more realistic way to stair step themselves in.
Yeah, but I also think that that's the other issue they didn't really talk about, which is she's thinking about the house she wants, not the house she can afford. So she should have done it backwards. She should have gone first, what can we afford? Then start looking at houses that fall into that category. As opposed to, I want the $400,000 house, but I'm not thinking about how we're going to pay for it. And that's where I think she kind of made the big mistake.
Right.
Because you get the house, and then 2 years from now you can't afford it, and you're underwater, and you have to sell it anyway. Then it costs you more than you put in, right? So I think that's the better sort of strategy to talk about with them. But yeah, I mean, I guess we're all kind of in agreement they shouldn't do it, but I would think it would be nicer for them to give them better options.
Right. I'm going to put this in the win column for both of us. I nailed what their advice was, and while I'm not going to give them a total loss because I feel like they steered them correctly, I feel like you have presented them with what options might look like, which is the more empowering situation. Just being shot down isn't that pleasant if it's something you want. And also, if you're just shot down and not given what your options are, you might just get a little bullheaded and go out and do it anyway and do something kind of dumb. So you probably need to figure out what your real options are so you feel like you know what you're actually evaluating, you know?
Absolutely. But yeah, they need to figure out, I would say you need to figure out your budget first and be a little stable. I would wait at least till the end of the year before we actually started talking about it. Give him a chance to get a job and get set up and get stable, and you to have the kid. And once all that's going through,
like what the teaching paychecks look like, and how our monthly expenses in general have changed with the child here. And I mean, granted, the main one should be the same, but some things will change a little, and you want to know what that looks like too before you add a bunch of other changes.
Absolutely. Plus, the other thing too with the emergency fund deal, the only thing I would add to that is, especially if I'm talking to somebody with a teacher or somebody who has like a physical job, where they have to be, especially people that have to be around a lot of other people now in the modern era of COVID. The one thing I always want to talk about is we need to talk about disability insurance. I know nobody wants to and everybody thinks it sucks, but you are almost certainly going to use it over the next 20 years. Very few people get away working for 20 or 30 years without having to go take 3 to 6 months off because they're ill or injured or something. It just, life is not that convenient.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't care how many carrots you eat or how many sit-ups you do. Especially if you're a teacher. There's going to be that one snot-nosed little brat who coughs on you, and the next thing you know, you're on a respirator for fucking 4 weeks. So.
Well, on that note, I'm excited to go to work tomorrow.
All right. Fun. So, Lacey's going to go. She's going to wear her hazmat suit.
I can still wear my mask in my classroom. I'm just putting it out there. Most people have abandoned theirs, but mine is on in my classroom because there's a lot of people in my classroom.
Yeah. Yep. You never know where those little snot lockers have been.
Well, I don't teach the little ones, but
no, I know.
Let's the little people.
Yeah, I think I got a little bit of a cold. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. Lacey, where can everybody catch you?
All right, you can catch me at mysensewithsense.com, where you can find information about blog posts or workshops, upcoming groups that I'm running, if you want to join one. So if you're interested in any of those, please write into us or send us clips. If you want to come on and have a discussion with us, we might be open to that if you pose it. Yep. Where can they email us?
Yeah, email us at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. Questions, concerns. If you want to come on the show, give us a call, and if if it's a decent topic, we'd be happy to have you on. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Like and subscribe, please, and we will catch you guys all later. Thank you very much. All right.